You're listening to the Because I Said So podcast.
All right. Said all right. Welcome to the Because I Said So podcast. It's a father and sons podcast. You can find us on iTunes, leave us a review, and rate us there. See, I did that at the beginning, so that if you're listening to this in the podcast app, you can go right to it and rate us on iTunes. That actually helps us a lot, get us noticed by more people. Because I Said So is a father and sons podcast. I'm Jeremy. With me, as always, are my two boys. Author of many children's books, who got an A in writing, who is now doing the dab, which I absolutely hate. Jonas is with me. Jonas, how are you today?
Good.
You gotta speak up, dude.
Good.
Okay, and next to me is my eldest boy. We won't talk about grades on this particular podcast, but he's doing well. He's no longer 14 like this episode is 14. He is 15. He is Josiah. And Josiah just finished playing with Photoshop on his computer for the first time. How'd you like that?
In the butt. It was so stupid. You have to... It's so much less intuitive than Photoshop Mix, which is a downgraded version of that Photoshop. Because in Photoshop Mix, when you add a new layer, it's not just there. It's another picture.
Note
so it
to
doesn't
myself,
make any sense.
Note for production, I'm going to add in violins behind him as he's complaining about Photoshop.
It's so counterintuitive.
Let's get to the point of this episode. Let's talk about Doctor Strange.
Love? What?
Let's talk about Doctor Strange.
Love. The Stanley Kubrick film from the 1960s.
No, we saw Doctor Strange earlier.
Who? Mr. Strange at church? He's a doctor? What are you talking about?
Doctor Strange the movie.
Oh, yeah. There's a cartoon on Netflix, on Hulu, Doctor Strange. Yeah, right? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Oh, you're talking about the Benedict Cumberbatch vehicle for Marvel Comics? Doctor Strange. Yes. Oh, yes. We did go partake of that film today, didn't we?
It wasn't bad.
Well, hold on. Before we get too deep into it, let's set up and say, we're gonna do a spoiler warning.
When we're going to talk about spoilers,
because we're gonna give a non-spoilery 3-minute review between the three of us, and then we will go into spoiler territory and tell you when to come back. But first of all, Josiah, give me in a couple of sentences how you felt about it.
Well, first, I don't know what it's like to be on drugs, but I think that's what it's like to be on drugs.
Okay.
And it was probably the best climax in some of the Marvel movies, because I think it was one of the best ones. And then it had a nice balance of humor and serious dark tones, and it was pretty good.
All right, Jonas, how'd you feel about it?
It was really good.
Okay.
Really good, and it was very disorienting.
Okay. That's a $3 word for you. Disorienting. But you liked it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I thought it was okay. It was okay. It was good. I wouldn't rank it as high as some other films from Marvel, but I liked it. But why don't we, at this point, right now we're at the 4.5 minute mark on the podcast. If you are listening and you have not seen the film and you don't want to be spoiled, fast forward to about the 10-minute mark. The 10-minute mark is when we'll stop talking, okay? We will stop talking in the spoiler territory at the 10-minute mark. Okay. Your favorite moment, Josiah, of the movie that would be spoilerish.
Was the part where he was being super stubborn, and then she like gives him like the palm heel strike almost to his stomach, and then he like goes out of his body, and then it's just like cycling through all these worlds, and it reminded me a lot of Ant-Man, like the part where he's going subatomic.
Okay, yeah. I actually was talking to my friends about that. Not that scene in Doctor Strange, but the scene in Ant-Man, and I said that's exactly how they're going to do it with Doctor Strange, and I was right. Because it was very, very trippy, very kaleidoscope-esque.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't know what it's like to be on drugs, but I bet that's what it's like.
Jonas, what was your favorite part?
Where the cloak where the cloak is like grabbing in one of the bad guys' heads. He's like slamming.
Okay, wait. We're burying the lead here. There's the cloak, cloak of levitation, and apparently it doesn't choose someone very easily. It finally chose Stephen Strange, and then it decided to help him out in the middle of the fight.
Strange.
His name is Stephen Strange.
Doctor Strange.
Stephen Strange. Anyway.
Mr. Strange.
Anyway, so and the cloak actually grabbed one of the bad guys.
Yeah, and it was like wrapped around his head and like banging his head into the ground.
That was pretty funny.
It was really good.
That was pretty funny. That whole thing you talked about with the palm strike where his body, that was in the trailer, dude.
I know.
Yeah, well, that was your favorite part, was in the trailer?
But
the most
I like saw some of the trailer. It didn't make a lot of sense. Like it was just a bunch of weird imagery, and that was it. Like
it's supposed to be.
Well, then my favorite part from the movie that wasn't in the trailer, as far as I know, was probably the part where he's talking to Wong, and he's like. Do you ever like listen to music and he keeps listing off? So you're like Drake, Beyonce, stuff like that.
His single name.
Eminem.
Yeah, it was
and then he's like, who? What? And then he's like Beyonce, like famous music artist. And then later on, he's like in the library and he's listening to music and he keeps opening up the portals. And he like is taking the books while he's listening to Beyonce. I thought that was funny.
That was pretty funny. I liked the moment in when he was taking the books. That was fun. That was probably the most fun I had. I thought that I think they're getting to the point where they take too much pride in the ability to tell jokes. Trying to filter out some sound. They take too much pride in their jokes, and it ended up becoming like way too. That's muffled. I think the worst part is that they are too goofy for their own good, and I like the comedic aspects of the Marvel films. But they're almost too silly to be taken serious now, and I think they're starting to kind of fall off that fun. They're trying to follow the fun train too much. I don't know.
Don't want to end up like DC, where they don't have any jokes.
Well, you don't feel like there's any real threat.
And then they're like, "Oh, we need to put more jokes in our movies." And Suicide Squad was trying to be a lot funnier, and then it just doesn't work.
My point is, it doesn't feel like there's too much of a threat to the characters because they're always goofing off and they're always joking. In fact, I felt like Stephen Strange was a lot like Tony Stark, and it was almost too much like Tony Stark. Maybe Doctor Strange is this cycle's answer to Iron Man. I liked that they finally revealed that the Eye of Agamotto was an Infinity Stone. I was kind of bummed that you didn't see any Thanos or any of that stuff in the post-credit scene. Although I did like the post-credit scenes. I thought they were very interesting and set up other things like Thor Ragnarok and also...
that was funny where he had the giant mug of beer and he drank it all and then...
he kept refilling it for him. Yeah. We were talking on our way home about when Spider-Man Homecoming comes out, and I should probably look that up and find out. because I know Thor Ragnarok comes out.
You have caps lock on.
I know I do. It doesn't matter.
Coming
Release date is July 7th of 2017.
Oh, so they're coming out with 3 ones next year?
Yeah, apparently they're going with 3 movies next year.
Oh,
so
that would be cool.
I knew they'd finished shooting it, but anyway.
Wait, Zendaya is...
Yes. Oh, and welcome back to our spoiler friends. No, there was no Spider-Man in Doctor Strange. We were actually talking about the films that are coming out. And
there was one good part that I want to talk about.
Oh, you know what? Go away for another minute and a half. All right. You can go ahead, Josiah. Or Jonas.
The first time he had the cloak of... The cloak...
Levitation.
Cloak of levitation. He was, like, trying to go grab an axe, but the cloak was, like, pulling him back.
Oh, yeah,
to grab
yep.
the chains to lock the bad guy out.
Yep.
That was really funny.
I also liked, I have like 10 seconds, I liked the part where he had to go to the hospital, have surgery, and then he came back and he was running out through the portal, and then his girlfriend was chasing after him, and finally he leaves, the portal closes, and all of a sudden the mop handle falls over and she jumps. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
All right.
There was a lot of, like, almost jump scares in it.
Yeah. Well, welcome back. If you have been trying to avoid spoilers, I don't think we spoiled too much in there, but enough to ruin your enjoyment. It felt like we were reading the actual comics from the 60s. It was very trippy, very kind of Steve Ditko-esque. It was very, very much a love letter to those comics.
I always thought that Doctor Strange was a bad guy.
Well,
that's what I always thought.
Did you think Doctor Strange was a villain for Doctor Who?
Not even close.
What about Dr. Zhivago? Or Doc Brown?
No.
What about Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman? Or Dr. I can't think of any. Trapper John M.D. Okay. Sorry. I'm running out of fake doctors. Dr. Dorian.
Dr. Doolittle.
Dr. Turk. Doc Holliday. I still win the doctor game. Dr. Oz.
No.
What?
There's none.
None? Alright, well. Anyway, we also mentioned Spider-Man Homecoming. That's coming out in July. So, there's 3 Marvel movies coming out next year.
There's Guardians of the Galaxy.
And
Homecoming.
Guardians of the Galaxy comes in May.
I think Homecoming is my most hyped one for next year.
Homecoming is July 7th. And then in November of next year is Thor Ragnarok. Yeesh, that's a lot of movies.
I wish they were still making Inhumans.
Well, it's in limbo because they got the Spider-Man deal, and they had to make a Spider-Man movie, and that pretty much put Inhumans on the back burner. But I'm looking up when the phases are. Let's see, Phase 1. All right, we already saw Phase 1, which was Iron Man 2. Well, that's weird. Phase 1 was Avengers Assembled. Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and the Avengers.
It's weird that they switched that Hulk movie is still in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, yet it's not. It doesn't seem like it is.
Different actor.
Because it's a different actor than the one in the Avengers.
Yes. But anyway, so then the second phase was Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man. Which is weird. Oh, Ant-Man came after Age of Ultron because Civil War.
I hated.
And now Civil War and Doctor Strange are in the third phase. And then after that, I don't know what's going to happen next.
I hated Iron Man 2. It was really boring.
Oh, here we go. It is boring. I wasn't a fan of it. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok, and then in 2018 we're going to get Black Panther, which will be awesome. And then finally Infinity War. And then they're going to have Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, and then another Avengers sequel in 2019. Jonas, how old are you going to be when it's 2019? You'll be 11.
And I'll be 18.
Jonas, you know what? Let's see. the first Marvel movie, the first Phase 1 movie was